All right, so I added a member pod, and that's just, it can be whatever you want to name it. It's named members or companies or whatever. As you see, it starts out with a name column and a body column. I can reorder these if I want to, and that's just the way they appear in the form. So whenever someone's editing the form, it just makes it more logical for them to see it in order the way you want it. So for our needs, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that body column. So now we have a name. So every member has a name. Josh, John, Mark, whatever it might be. Now we need to add a company because each member is part of a company. Let's see. Actually, Tony, do you want to do it by you want to separate everything by company or by person? Person. Perfect. All right, so we are going to do a company column. And what I'm going to do is label here, it's auto-generated from the name, so you don't have to use it, but you can put it whatever you want to do. So you can put company name, but the column is still going to be named company. And you have the column type here. This is what fiancés are for. An extra hand.
We can tell y'all I'm married yet. I've been married 8 years, and I would have done that a long time ago. Exactly. That's exactly what I would do.
It worked.
Get sand.
All right, so for the company name, we have just a single line of text. It can be date, number, Boolean, which is a checkbox, so don't let that confuse you. It's really just a checkbox. And then you have the single line of text, which is what you see here. And then you have a paragraph text, which is like you would see in your content type post or page. Whenever you're editing content, there's that big WYSIWYG editor. It's what you see is what you get. It's got formatting, and you can go to the HTML view and do whatever you need to do there. Or you can do code, which is just basically an HTML view for people that code. Or it could just make sure that you don't have the formatting WYSIWYG on. So it's just a straight text area. Then you have a file upload. And then you have a permalink, which is what you're familiar with posts and pages. You can have a permalink. And what that is for a pod is it's just related to that pod item. So this isn't the full permalink of DFWWP.org/the full permalink. It's really just that section of the pod. So it's really like, for instance, if a member's name is John, it would be John, and that would be the permalink. You don't have all the stuff outside of that. It's just John. Then you have a relationship, and that's very useful. We're not going to use it right now for this column, but we're going to use single line text. And some people aren't going to be part of companies, or maybe they're in between companies, they don't want to list it. So you don't have to make that required, but you can. Or you can make it unique, which is only one person from each of those companies can enter that company name. So that would be useful in certain situations for something more complex. And then multiple right now, this UI I need to first address that we are in the process of updating the entire UI from top to bottom and making it look better and making it more understandable. So as you see this is now, it might not be that maybe 2 to 3 weeks from now. So it's going to get better and easier to use. You can use a display helper, which basically formats the output a certain way. Or you can use input helper, which we don't have any yet. But what that does is it circumvents the form building process, and when it builds this text field, you can add anything you want to that field. You can make it extra HTML, add some JavaScript, some more CSS, whatever you want to do. Full customization. For this use, we don't need an input helper, so we'll go ahead and just add a company name now. All right, so the next column was contact. I'm going to leave that one out because that one's a little bit more complex, and we'll get back to it. Address, so we have address, line 1, line 2, etc. For this point, I think I'm going to use line 1 and line 2. Single line. And then we have the city. And one thing great with pods is it comes with predefined a list of states and a predefined list of countries. It does not have provinces, etc. It just has U.S. states. So what we are going to do is set up a relationship. And this is where it gets really cool and really confusing. We have picks, which are the column type, which is pick, and it's a relationship field. What that means is you can relate it to another pod, like country or state, or you can relate it to your WordPress categories if you have them. And you can also relate them to WordPress pages, posts, or users, and eventually even more. So for this one state, I'm going to select that one. This bidirectional, don't let that confuse you too much because at this point, you don't need to. So we'll ignore that for right now until we get to the next part. So we have state for this one, and they're only going to be able to select one, but if they were able to select more, for a pick relationship, you can select this multiple checkbox, and that will let them select more than one from a list. All right, so I'm just click save. Alrighty, and then we have postal code. And you might think it might be a number, but for this use, we're going to use single line text because they might enter dashes or whatever they might, maybe that's space, extra space here or there. Number right now is really for 0.00, that type of formatting. So we use single line text. And then we have phone number, so phone number. And also that will be text. And I'm not really making anything required right now because a lot of this people might not want to add, but they will need to add something here very shortly once we get to it. Fax number. Website URL. In case they have a Twitter ID, they can provide that. Call that differently. Single text. As you see, my fiance already knows a little bit about pods, so she's been watching me heavily because I work on a lot of pod stuff. Description, and this is where I could have taken that previous body column that was there before. I deleted it, but for now I wanted to add it back, and I'll do that now. And this one I'm going to give them an option just to do code, just to make sure that it doesn't get a little too fancy. And then save it. And then we have photo or logo. I'm just going to take that out because it makes it easier. All right, so we're going to use file upload for that one. And by the way, Matt, he's the lead developer of pods. I'm the secondary lead developer. It's between us. He's working right now. He might be committing it tonight, but it's a completely brand new file uploader for pods. So it's going to be integrated with WordPress Media, and it's going to be much more easier and more familiar for your users to select a file and upload it. So I'm going to save that. All right, so this next part is he wants to be able to assign users an email. Instead of putting a column here, I can relate it to a user. So whenever they sign up, that user's email is already assigned to that user. So you don't have to enter it twice. You don't have to worry about any extra data. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a user set up a user relationship here. All right, so now we have our full member pod. As it stands, it's very simple, very to the point. Now, what if I wanted to go and add a member real fast? And I'll just pretend it's me. Oh yeah, does anyone have any questions